So just a little update on the Memorandum of Understanding. We covered it in great detail last night. I spent like 90 minutes monologuing about it, explaining every facet of it. So if you want the whole show, you have to watch the episode from last night. We really went into a lot of depth on it. But I do just want to give an update. So as you know, there is a short-term agreement between the U.S. and Iran. They're calling it this Memorandum of Understanding. Now, this is what's important to understand about this. The MOU, this is not a treaty. It's not a deal, an agreement. It is something like an agreement in principle. It is a framework. It is loose. So it is a written agreement. There are, I believe, 14 clauses, and there are signatures. The U.S. and Iran have both signed on to it. But when you look at the actual provisions of it, they're very general. They're pointing towards something rather than laying out a ton of actual concrete details. So this is not, if you're reading through, because we do now at this point have what is being called a leak of these 14 different clauses. When you read through them, they don't provide a ton of specificity. It's not a technical agreement. It's not detailed. And the reason being is because this is not a final agreement. And I said this last night, the way that you need to think about this is like a formalization of the ceasefire. So it is more formal than the ceasefire that we have been under, technically speaking, even though it's not real. We're not really in a ceasefire because we're still bombing them, they're bombing us, the strait is closed. Whatever this period has been, we are formalizing this in a memorandum of understanding, but this is gesturing towards a longer-term deal, which will be technical, specific, detailed, concrete, and that is going to come at the end of this 60-day negotiating period, which is a part of the MOU, and that's also subject to be extended as well. If we don't get a final deal in 60 days, they're going to push it back even further. So that's where we are. And the big question with this agreement is what is actually in it? The deal was announced over the weekend, but we haven't been able to read it because they have not published it. And so last night we talked about what has been rumored to be in the deal and all these discrepancies. Because we've not actually seen the text, what we have to rely on is what the two countries are saying about it. And so the Iranian state media is saying one thing, the United States is saying something completely different. And there seem to be some major discrepancies between the two sides about what is actually in the deal. And we talked about this last night. This is very confusing and puzzling because if they already signed the deal, then it really shouldn't be this complicated. There should be no ambiguity. There is a deal. It exists. There is text. So the deal says something. If Iran says one thing and the U.S. says another thing, well, the way that you clarify this is just go to the text. What does the deal say? Why do we need to rely on statements from Iran and statements from the United States that we apparently need to reconcile when they could just publish the text and the text can speak for itself? I mean, it says something. So regardless of what the two sides are claiming, the text is what it is. So we still don't have it. And apparently we're not getting it until this weekend. Trump says that after this ceremonial signing on Friday, even though it's already allegedly been signed, there's going to be a ceremonial signing of it on Friday in Switzerland, which will be in person. And then once it's done, then apparently we get to see it. Up until this point, however, we're just getting these competing claims from the two different sides. What has changed today is we do have a little bit more specificity about what is in it. Some of the major discrepancies pertain to a few separate questions. So under the MOU, the big things that are covered are, one, an actual ceasefire. And a ceasefire is the cessation or stopping of open hostilities, open warfare. Now, why is this contentious? It should be pretty straightforward. Ceasefire means we're not going to bomb you anymore. You're not going to bomb us. Well, just like the original ceasefire in April, Iran is insistent that we don't just have a ceasefire in the Persian Gulf. but also that we have a ceasefire in Lebanon. Because at the same time that the U.S. and Israel began attacking Iran in February, Israel also began attacking Hezbollah in Lebanon, or intensifying and escalating their attacks against Hezbollah in Lebanon. So Iran has been insistent for months that we don't get any kind of agreement or short-term truce or the opening of the Strait of Hormuz unless there is a ceasefire not just over the Persian Gulf, but also in Lebanon, in that theater as well.
Okay, so Nick J. Fuentes, right from the get-go, he's angry because he said, when Donald Trump, when he said that he wanted to be the president again, Nick said that it was a bad idea. And ever since that day, he's been against Donald Trump. So let's get back to the clip.
So that was a major discrepancy. Is Lebanon part of the agreement or is it not? Second major area is the Strait of Hormuz. So since the hostilities began, Iran has obviously closed the Strait of Hormuz to allied shipping. So that's all the Gulf countries and the United States. And in order for the United States to stop bombing Iran, we expect them to allow commercial shipping to resume through the strait. Again, why is this contentious? Well, it's not a question of whether the strait will be opened. It's a question of under what conditions. Because openness can mean two different things, as you know. It could mean that we return to the pre-war status quo, where commercial shipping just goes through the strait free and clear. Iran has a very different idea of reopening the strait. They say, we're not going back to the way things used to be. We own it now, and we now reserve the right to charge money. And so now we're going to profit off of the strait because we are claiming ownership over it. So that's another question is the strait reopening in the way that it was open before the war, or is the strait reopening under Iran's control, which has been how the strait has operated since the war started? And that's a major discrepancy. The United States has claimed that it's going to be freedom of navigation. Iran has insisted that they will manage the strait jointly with Oman. Lastly, it is a question concerning reparations and the unfreezing of Iranian assets. This is a big sweetener to make Iran open up the strait, which is sort of interesting. So it's not enough that we stop bombing them for them to open up the strait. We also are now going to be giving them money. And this is going to happen with two different mechanisms. One, we're unfreezing previously frozen Iranian assets held in foreign banks under the sanctions regime. So there's over $100 billion in Iranian assets, and it was claimed that $25 billion of that would be unfrozen when the deal is completed, and maybe up to 50% of that will be unfrozen up front. And then the other mechanism is that there will be a $300 billion reconstruction fund, which will be allocated from private companies and maybe sovereign wealth funds coming from the Gulf and coming from East Asia. And it will not be funded by the United States. It's not Iranian assets. This is private capital raised maybe in conjunction with governments or sovereign wealth funds, but it is primarily coming from private investors. And this is to rebuild Iran's civilian infrastructure. So their refineries, their airports, steel mills, things like that. And the question concerning these transfers is, when does Iran get the money? We talked about this last night. Up until this point, the United States has insisted they don't get any money until they comply with the terms of the deal. So it's conditioned upon their performance. And so if Iran complies with the deal, then gradually, incrementally over time, money is unfrozen piecemeal as a reward. And this ensures compliance. On the flip side, Iran, they want the opposite. Iran wants money up front. Maybe not all of it, but they want some sanctions relief and some reparations and some capital up front because they want to start rebuilding their country. And also, they don't want the United States to grow in strength while they're stalled. Iran hasn't had any foreign direct investment for like 40 years. They've been under the sanctions regime for almost just as long. And so they don't want a situation where we are able to regroup and we're able to rebuild our arsenal, and they're just languishing with a collapsed currency, stagnant economy, no capital, can't pay their soldiers or their police. So that's how they see it.
Okay, so let me just stop this video real fast, because I said this to all my friends before USA invaded Iran, that this was a bad idea. And look at the prices right now. The prices are up. And the reason why is because of, to be honest, the government. Because the government, they are the people that made Donald Trump pull this move. So let's get back to the clip.
Now, we have some clarity on all three of these things as of today, and it's pretty bad for the United States. I said this the other night. Any way that you cut it, this is a terrible deal for the United States. There's no way around it. We lost the war. We are begging them for peace because we lost. We can't hang anymore. We started a war that we couldn't finish. We had all these objectives that we're not able to achieve. And now we're in a position where we actually have to beg Iran to stop the war that we started, because we are slowly being killed by the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And we're just running up against the clock here because our strategic petroleum reserve is running out. And once that's gone, energy prices are going to go sky high, and it's going to collapse the economy for many, many different reasons, which we've gotten into on the show previously. And so you know this because we're really not getting anything out of it. All of these major categories, there's not one thing that we're getting. We're not getting regime change. We're not getting their nuclear program to be sunsetted. We're not getting their highly enriched uranium. We're not even getting a resumption of normal traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. They're going to make money off of it in perpetuity. We're not getting reparations. We're not getting payments. And as a matter of fact, part of the agreement is we are withdrawing our military from the region. So our bases got destroyed. Our economy is suffering. We are running out of oil, which we will have to replenish in our strategic petroleum reserve. We're not getting anything coming our way. And we also haven't gotten Iran to change their behavior. So we get nothing. They get everything. Now, like I said, we've gotten some clarity on each of these provisions. Number one, J.D. Vance came out and clarified, and it's also been leaked in Bloomberg, that the ceasefire is a ceasefire on all fronts. Now, who knows what will happen with this? Because yesterday, just yesterday, Trump said Lebanon is not part of the deal. Netanyahu said we are not part of the deal. But today, Vance is saying Lebanon is part of the deal. It is a ceasefire everywhere. So who knows what will happen in the next few days? Is the United States going to reverse that position? Is Israel going to go out of their way to bomb Lebanon in order to demonstrate that they don't consider themselves bound by the agreement? That's the wild card. Anything can happen there. Number two, as it concerns the Strait of Hormuz, according to the leaked MOU in Bloomberg, Iran will be managing the strait. And it seems that the administration is also admitting that Iran will be managing the strait. Now, in these 60 days, Iran, under the agreement, is not allowed to charge a toll. So at least while this more permanent agreement is being worked out, Iran is managing the strait but not charging money. After this period, however, it seems that they reserve the right to charge money. So they're going to manage it, which means they own it. And if they own it, it seems like they reserve that right outside the life of this agreement or these negotiations, that they're going to be able to charge a toll. So they get it. They win the Strait of Hormuz. And then lastly, concerning the transfer of money, once again, we're getting some clarity. This $300 billion has apparently already been allocated from the Gulf countries. It's not coming from America. It's not coming from American companies. They're not investing in Iran, but it's coming from East Asian companies, coming from the Gulf, sovereign wealth funds and companies. And that money is not going to be paid out until a nuclear agreement is reached. So apparently they're not getting any of that $300 billion, not until this agreement is signed, but until the next agreement is finished. So that's a little bit better. They're not getting any money until they actually make some nuclear concessions. And so that's maybe the only positive from the American perspective out of these developments, out of these things that we've learned so far today. But really, any way you cut it, there's two things you could say about this agreement, which is that one, it's completely one-sided. It's hard to overstate how one-sided it is. Because again, all you have to do is think about how we went into the conflict in February. We said we want regime change. And it's interesting because the Trump administration is simultaneously saying we never wanted regime change, while also saying that we technically did achieve regime change. Trump has said variously in the past couple of weeks, hey, we never even really wanted that. That's not the goal. We never set out to achieve that. So if we didn't get it, it's not a complete failure. Yet at the same time, he's also saying, well, when you really think about it, we've had multiple regime changes. Because Trump says, since we've killed their leadership multiple times, even though it's part of the same security apparatus, even though it's still the same core group, he says, well, it's different people. We killed the supreme leader, and his son took his place. So that's a regime change. Nobody else would call that a regime change. If you kill the supreme leader and his son becomes the next supreme leader, did you really change the regime? If you've made it a dynastic, totalitarian, religious regime, I don't think so. So there's no question about it. We did set out to achieve regime change. Remember how we got into the conflict in the first place? It was on the heels of those massive protests in January, which threatened to overthrow the government. That is when Trump mobilized our Navy and Air Force into the region to start the war. So when you look at the precipitating cause, if you go back to that speech he gave in Mar-a-Lago the night the war started, it is undeniable that we set out to achieve a regime change, and it didn't happen. They can deny that they tried it. They can lie and say that we achieved it twice, but the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is still in power. It is still a revolutionary Islamic government. It is still the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. It's still Mojtaba Khamenei, the son of the previous supreme leader. And if anything, that regime that exists now is more radical, more defiant, and more entrenched than the previous regime. The previous regime, or you could say the previous leadership, arguably they were weaker. There was more instability in the country. They were less popular. But after Iran was attacked by the United States and Israel, all that did is create an effect where the people are rallying around the flag.
So one thing that I gotta say about Nick is a lot of people were against him when he said that he was against Donald Trump. But I think that a lot of people actually agree with Nick now.
And what's more, within the government, because the United States, and more so Israel, killed the more moderate members of the regime that would have made a deal, the only people that are remaining are the hardliners. The only people remaining in their legislature, in the IRGC, in the civilian military government are the people that distrusted the U.S. and Israel the most. So we didn't get that. We initially bombed Iran last year, and Israel and the United States chose targets this year to destroy their nuclear complex. And of course, there was talk about retrieving the highly enriched uranium. We've done neither of those things. We have not destroyed their centrifuges. We have not gotten them to agree to stop enriching uranium. We haven't retrieved the highly enriched uranium stockpile. We also went into the war to bomb their missile stockpile. That's actually why Netanyahu came to the United States at the end of December. He came to Mar-a-Lago to plead with Trump to restart the war with Iran. Specifically, he said, because we have to degrade or annihilate Iran's stockpile of missiles because they were building about 300 missiles per month since Midnight Hammer and Roaring Lion in June of 2025. Well, according to the CIA and the DIA, as of a couple of weeks ago, Iran still has 70% of their ballistic missiles. So we didn't get that either. Then, once the war started, Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz. That became an objective. That was not an objective before the war because the strait was open. Once we attacked them, they closed the strait. And so in the process of the war, we had a new objective, which was take back control over the strait. Even that we have not achieved, because while it will be open to commercial shipping, it will be open under Iran's control. And you can only have shipping go through with their permission and after paying them money. So we have not gotten anything that we set out to achieve. No regime change. Haven't gotten the highly enriched uranium. Haven't gotten them to stop enriching. Haven't destroyed their missile stockpile. Haven't even gotten the Strait of Hormuz. And on the flip side, what has Iran gotten? Well, they're getting this $300 billion reconstruction fund. They're getting $25 billion in unfrozen assets. They may be getting all primary and secondary sanctions lifted from them. They're getting the U.S. blockade of the strait to end. Meanwhile, they control it. And they're also getting a ceasefire in Lebanon so that Hezbollah can actually live to fight another day. Now, theoretically, the Lebanese armed forces, with the help of Syria, under pressure from the United States, might disarm Hezbollah. But who knows if that even happens? What happens in the short term is that Hezbollah lives to fight another day, and the Israelis are kept out of southern Lebanon. So Iran is really getting a lot here. They're getting Hezbollah protected from Israel. They're getting the strait. They're getting their money. They're getting their sanctions relief. They're getting the U.S. out of the region. They've reestablished deterrence. We have gotten nothing. Nothing. And think about what we have lost. We have probably spent, when all is said and done, $1 trillion on this war, because we're going to have to replenish the strategic petroleum reserve. That's going to cost a ton of money and take a long time. We had 4% inflation last month, 3.8% inflation the month before that, and we're paying interest on our $39 trillion debt, okay? You've got, it probably cost us $50 billion to $100 billion in actual cost to keep our carrier strike groups in the region, to launch all those airstrikes on Iran. We probably have suffered tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars to our military bases all over the Gulf. They say that 9 have been completely destroyed, 15 have been damaged, 13 soldiers have died, hundreds have been severely injured. And now we're trying to fast track this program to rebuild our interceptor arsenal because of everything that was used up defending all the Gulf countries, all our bases, Israel, our carriers over the course of the war. So where's our reparations? Where's our money? And then the grand prize, forget even about all that, the grand prize for Trump in particular is that he has ruined his legacy. We're going to get destroyed in the midterms. His job approval and favorability has never been lower. Even in his first term, it has not been as low as it is now. And forever, he will be remembered as the guy that promised no new wars and then started a war with Iran on behalf of Israel. So this is where we are in the conflict. This is like one of these world historical mistakes. And the only thing you could say about it is you just have to be happy that it's finally over. You have to just be satisfied that we cut our losses. We're done here. The only problem now, all of this being said, is that we still might not be out of the weeds because, by the way, this entire agreement, as sorry and sad as it is, it's totally necessary, but it's also contingent on Israel not blowing everything up by going back into Lebanon, which they almost certainly are going to do. And so it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the next 5 to 7 days. I wonder where we will be on Monday, because either on Monday, Israel will surprise everybody and they're going to behave themselves. Under the pressure from the president, they're not going to bomb Lebanon and we have a deal. Or, and I think this is more likely, Israel is going to demonstrate that they are not bound by the agreement. They're going to launch strikes in Lebanon. It's going to sour the Iranians, who will walk away, and we're going to be right back at it again. Strait of Hormuz is closed. Trump is on Truth Social, begging the Iranians to come back to the table. And maybe the only silver lining, I said this on Twitter today, the only silver lining in all of this is if we can finally decouple from Israel. And I hope that Trump is paying attention, because take a look at all of these war hawks and neocons and Jews on Twitter. Do you remember when the war in Iran started? The Jewish Zionists were Trump's biggest cheerleaders. Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro and all of them were clinking their champagne glasses, and they were saying, God bless Trump, he's the only one with the balls to confront Iran. They were the biggest cheerleaders of all time. And they were the inquisitors too. If anybody had any doubts about Trump or the war, they were the first ones to say, you were disloyal. Mark Levin and all the others, they were the first ones to say, if you're not on board with the war, then you're not a good Trump supporter. You're not a Republican. You're not a patriot. You're not American. You remember this? They were the most gung-ho with their MAGA hats on. They were the biggest glazers of this administration when he was carrying out the war. And effusive in their praise, Fox News every night, go get him, Mr. President. You're a hero. You're like Winston Churchill. You're like Alexander. All this stuff. And now the second that Trump has gone against Israel's interest here by bringing peace to the region, now look at them. They are literally foaming at the mouth. John Podhoretz, Mark Levin, Shapiro, all of them. The meltdown is unbelievable. And the switch up, it's just like a 180. It's like you flipped a switch. Yesterday, Mark Levin had on his MAGA hat, screaming and yelling about Tucker and Megyn Kelly and Candace Owens, and you're not real MAGA. And then it's like you flipped a switch. And today, he's saying, what's going on, Mr. President? What's gotten into you? This is terrible. So it's interesting. So who's disloyal now? Now all these people that were the biggest cheerleaders, now they're the biggest haters. So what happened? What happened? You switched up. I hope Trump is paying attention to that. And it's interesting, right? All these people were never Trumpers in 2016 when Trump was America first. Then when Trump was bombing Iran, they were his biggest supporters. Now that he's making peace with Iran, now it seems like they're borderline haters all over again. Now, what does this tell us? It tells us that we need to be the same way, that we have the right instinct, doesn't it? You know, because here's something that's sort of funny. So when Trump is America first, we support him. When he's not, we don't. When he makes a deal like this, we say, you know what? Let's just end the war. This is a good deal. Let's just wrap it up. Let's get Netanyahu under control and let's end the conflict. In other words, we take our own side. When Trump does what we want, we support him. When he doesn't, we don't. The Jews do the same thing. When Trump is going against Israel, they hate him. They would rather see Hillary Clinton become president. When they think that Trump is going to do what Israel wants, they're his biggest supporters. They're at their rally. They put on the MAGA hat. They think it's quaint. They think it's kitschy. They're all over it. They love it. When Trump goes against Israel, they hate him again.
Okay, so the truth about Donald is that, he has his tail behind his legs because he tried to negotiate and play hardball with Iran. And Iran, they refused to actually, agree to his negotiation terms. And he has made a complete fool out of himself. So let's get back to the clip.
They're taking their own side. Who is not doing this? It's all of these stupid goyim. And I'm thinking about people like Jack Posobiec. I'm thinking about people like John Doyle. I'm thinking about people like Captive Dreamer, that no matter what Trump does, they'll defend it. If he's America first, they defend it. If he's Israel first, they defend it. They don't care what they're getting, if they're getting something, if they're getting nothing. They just support him regardless. And they tell themselves and everybody else, we need to keep supporting Trump. He needs us. We have to just support everything that he does. And meanwhile, the only people that are getting anything out of him are either us or the Jews. Because it is our negativity, it is our disincentivizing his different actions, which actually changes his behavior. Trump knows that if he stops the mass deportations and if he brings us to war in Iran, we are not going to be happy. And if we are not happy, then we don't show up in the midterms. And if we don't show up in the midterms, then you've got problems. Simultaneously, he knows that if the Jews are not happy, then the Jews are going to pull the plug on the money. And they might assassinate him. And they might, they're going to do things to hurt him too. The Israel lobby is very powerful. Maybe the AIPAC check doesn't clear for the Republicans in the midterms, and they're going to need it to beat the Democrats. So Trump knows I need to keep these two camps happy, because if I don't keep the Jews happy, they're going to punish me by taking their money. If I don't keep the base happy, they're going to punish me by taking their votes. Is he even thinking about the simps in the middle? No, because he'll have them no matter what. He never has to worry about making them unhappy, because they will be glazing and supporting and defending and voting and donating no matter what he does. So those people, they just get fucked. And they will be happy no matter what. Well, if they get something, they say, see, this is why we voted for Trump. If they get nothing, they say, well, we need to live to fight another day. We got to keep pushing. We didn't support Trump enough. So he's not worried about making those people happy. So he had to bomb Iran because Netanyahu told him to, but now he needs to end the war because he realizes the bottom is going to fall out on his support if this war goes on any longer. And there's some other constraints too. There's military. We just can't really win the war. That's maybe that. The economic constraint, the fact that we're just simply running out of energy, that's also a problem. But I think on some level, yeah, he's also worried that he's really losing a lot of support here too. So there's a lesson in this, which is if that's how the Jews operate, look, they're teaching us. Think about the Jews that switched over and voted for Trump after October 7th. They were lifelong Democrats, and when the Democrats stopped supporting Israel, they switched sides. They switched sides. Many of them are like gay. I think about these people I think about Jacob Hellberg is like one of the most flamboyant gay men you've ever seen. And the guy's as liberal as they come. He's as liberal as it gets. And he has no loyalty to the Democrats. He gave Trump's joint campaign committee $830,000 because Trump was going to be better for Israel. What does that say? It means that as liberal as he is, and he's as liberal as they get, he's a liberal, gay, cosmopolitan, rich Jew. I think he's in California. And he has zero loyalty to the Democratic Party. When the Democrats went anti-Israel, he said, I'm out. He said, girl, bye. He said, bye. That's probably what he says, probably more like that. And then he went to the Republicans. He doesn't care what the Republicans say about everything else. They're going to do it for Israel. We need to take a page out of their playbook and do the same thing. If the Republicans aren't doing what we want them to do, walk away. Walk away and stop supporting them. We have no elite. It doesn't matter. Yeah, I'm a conservative guy. I'm Catholic. I'm pro-white. The left is fucking evil. We despise the left. These people are awful. They are insane. And, you know, it's easy to be enamored with the left when you're in a silo of right-wing chuds. I'm borrowing this tweet from Laundry Queen. It's easy for these guys like Richard Spencer to have a love affair with the left when you're in a silo with like despicable, disgusting chuds that look like Shane Gillis and are still doing like 1350 jokes. But then you actually encounter liberals in the real world and you realize like these people are fucking scum. Like, these people, they drive a Tesla and they have like a bumper sticker that says, I bought my Tesla before Elon went crazy. It's like, that's the real left. The real left are not racists that secretly hate immigrants and say nigger and like are, you know, fascist, but like in a NATO way. Like they agree with Putin that NATO's the Fourth Reich for white. They don't believe that, okay? They're garbage. However, as much as I despise the left and as conservative as I am, I have no loyalty to the Republican Party. I have loyalty to America. If the Republican Party's not America first, I'm not with the Republican Party. And if Trump is not America first, I'm not with Trump. And if I'm not with Trump, I'm going to criticize Trump. I'm going to heap negativity upon Trump until I get what I fucking want. That's what the Jews do, and it works for them. Let this be a lesson because it's so transparent right now. It's like just take a long, hard look at that. Take a long, hard look at Mark Levin. Mark Levin was a big Trump supporter when he was getting everything he wanted. And Trump was praising Mark Levin on Twitter or True Social, saying Mark Levin is a genius. He's like the Messiah. He is America, blah, blah. And it doesn't matter how much Trump has done for Mark Levin. The second that Trump stops doing things for Israel, Mark Levin switches up. That's how they play. They play hardball. It's just called not being a sucker. That's how white people need to think. White people, Christians, we need to think this way. We need to get a little more selfish. That's the problem, is we just have this mentality of giving. We have to be on the team. We have to think about what's good for the team. They don't think about what's good for the team. I saw an interview with J.D. Vance today. J.D. Vance went on Megyn Kelly, and he said, you know, our coalition is equally supported by people like you, Megyn, and Tucker and Candace, but also people like Mark Levin and Ben Shapiro. Vance said, yeah, like it's both sides. It's a Big Ten. It's neocons and isolationists, he says. But Vance says, very importantly, so I mean, you could say a lot about that by itself. But he goes further. Vance says, why have the neocons won? He said, because the neocons play the game. He goes, when they get disappointed, they don't leave the coalition. He says they don't take their ball and go home. He said they stay in the game and they keep supporting the Republicans and they keep fighting. He says, so we need to do the same thing. He goes, even if you don't like the war in Iran, you still got to support us and not walk away from the Republican Party. And here's the thing about that. That's not true. Okay? What he said on that show is not true. When the neocons don't get what they want, they do walk away. What are you talking about? When Trump won the nomination in 2016, they voted for Hillary Clinton, or they didn't vote at all. So that's just simply not true. And then when Trump won the election, they were all sabotaging the administration from the inside. Again, what are you talking about? Trump tried to pull us out of Syria. The generals just lied to him and they said they were pulling us out and then they just weren't. So no, that's not true at all. No, what they have done, yes, they have stayed in the game. They've kept their jobs, but they've always fought ruthlessly for their own interest, ruthlessly for their own side. And they make it very clear what side they're on, and they make it very clear that if you're not with them, they're not with you. And we need to be the same way. So we just can't be the stupid party anymore, the stupid faction of the stupid party. So anyway, so that's the situation with the MOU. Like I said, we will see what happens on Friday. We'll see what happens this weekend. But the big takeaway is we lost the war, total calamity, and just thank God that it's over now. Hopefully it's over. If there's anything good that comes out of it, it's that we see what is happening behind the scenes. That may be the only benefit out of all of this, is that people have, in a real way, become hip to just how all of this works, which is, look, the Jews brought us into this war. It's a total disaster. Now they're trying to keep us in this war by any cost. They are the problem here.
So if you stayed till the end, I appreciate you guys for staying with me this far. So here's the thing about Donald. I'm not a Trump fan, and at the same token, I'm not against him. But the truth is that Donald has made a fool out of himself because he tried to play hardball with Iran, and they refused to actually, agree to Donald's negotiation demands that he laid out. And I think that this definitely showed, Donald in a very vulnerable light, if you ask me. So I actually want to know what you guys think about this. So make sure to leave a comment, like this video, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next videos.